Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Cost of Magic, the Intrigue of Magic series, Book 2 by L.J. Evias, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Part 1, South Parsa, Chapter 1. The final arrow plunged into the speeding target, shattering it to pieces. Satisfied, Torvia lowered her bow. None of the other trainees had shot such a difficult target, and most still had arrows left. Charla, their instructor, whipped up the last few clay discs with the casual wave of a hand. She seemed bored by the display, and Torvia didn't blame her. Archery was little use to a guard, except perhaps for hunting off-world. Though today, Charla ought to be paying more attention. As the remaining few trainees finished their last shots, Torvia scrutinized Charla closely. Today was supposed to be a test indicating their suitability for a guard position, and hopefully for Torvia, a royal guard position. But Charla had said nothing since they'd begun. Officially, Torvia was too young for a formal role, but she was here, and Charla knew her ambitions. Prince Adamir himself had instructed Charla to train her. He must be expecting her to pass. But then Charla wouldn't take that into account. She had her own rules. Good, Charla said as the last clay shards shattered across the ground. Now who would like to test their magic first? She proceeded to the center of the training ground, where a man of straw awaited their protection. Someone had given it a belt and some boots, but it listed feebly to one side. Their charges wouldn't be so helpless, especially Adamir. I'll go first, the tallest boy, Mavrin, said. He smirked at her. I'll challenge Torvia. Torvia frowned. He was up to something. His magical skill couldn't rival hers. Charla tapped her fingers against her other hand. Well volunteered. She gestured at the sorry straw figure. Torvia, move into position. If any straw is singed or out of place, you have failed. Without hesitation, Torvia took her place. The conditions were harsh, but no challenge for her. No spell that Mavrin could cast would breach her shield. Mavrin edged towards her, his hand outstretched. Now! As he cast his spell, all the others joined in, engulfing her in a wall of fire. She should have known what he was up to. Whether it was her unusual skill or her odd appearance, she'd always been an outsider. It wouldn't have been difficult to get everyone to turn on her. Long black hair wasn't too uncommon, and plenty of people had her tan skin, but she'd never met anyone with her amber eyes. Luckily for her, their combined efforts were no problem. Her shield stayed strong, the reassuring blue cooling the heat of the blaze. Charla could find no reason to doubt her now. Flame roared all around, blocking her opponents from view. Not that she needed to see them for her magic to find them. Stalking through the fire, she concentrated on each presence, then struck with crimson lightning. 3 thuds meant 3 opponents down. Only 2 left. She flexed her fingers, deciding on the next spell. 5 against 1 was no challenge. The fire wasn't even taxing her shield. Without warning, the furnace dissipated, revealing the hazy outlines of the remaining 2. Lightning sped towards her, amethyst and topaz, giving away their identities as surely as their faces. A disadvantage of a spell that varied with the caster, but easily overcome. Not that she'd ever bothered to change the color of her own lightning. But to drop the fire before casting. They must not have been able to detect her with their magic. They were worse than she'd thought. But seeing her wouldn't help. With a smile, she sidestepped one bolt and deflected the other back at the taller boy, following up with a torrent of ice shards. The jagged points stuck in his sapphire shield, dripping away into nothingness. Mavrin grinned. Not so perfect, eh? That fire taking the magic out of you. Purple flashed as more lightning crackled against her shield from the boy behind. They weren't even going for the straw man. Ignoring him, she cast her own flame, engulfing both boys, and patiently waited for their magic to deplete. From her vantage point on the wall, Charla pursed her lips in evident disapproval. She was always disapproving. Whether it was Torvia's unbraided hair, her scuffed boots, or a wayward spell, Charla would always find something to correct her on. Perhaps being the perfect guard and instructor made her miserable. But if defeating 5 opponents didn't impress her, what would? She glanced back to check the straw man was unharmed. With its head tilted, it seemed to be nodding in approval, a feat far more than Charla could muster. Torvia shrugged back. There was nothing more for her to do. The boys were defeated. Knocking them out wouldn't prove anything, and she didn't want to hurt anyone unnecessarily. Guards always acted with honor and restraint. The test was over, unless Charla wanted to challenge her personally. Enough. Charla leapt down from the wall, her perfectly neat black braids flying behind her. We all know you can cast a powerful spell and shoot an arrow, but to become a royal guard, you need to be able to use a sword. Torvia grimaced. At only 15 and small for her age, wielding a sword was almost pointless. All these boys could cut her in two with the sheer weight of their weapons. Charla strode toward the group and waved a hand to dissipate the fire. Torvia and Mavron, you may duel first. Torvia shot Charla a dirty look. Had she selected a magical melee first to rile them up? With his skill, Mavron didn't need antagonizing to decimate her. Mavron grinned as he drew his blade. Not so confident now, eh? Grinding her teeth, Torvia moved into position. Despite the morning's exercises, Mavron still seemed fresh and had a massive height and reach advantage over her. No magic, Charla reminded them. To be a royal guard, you must be able to fight on worlds without magic. Torvia clenched her jaw. This was going to hurt. She wasn't going to let Mavron or Charla or anyone else stand in her way. She deserved to be a royal guard. Prince Adamir needed her, and she wasn't going to be left behind every time he went away. Not anymore. She had to pass this challenge. With a scream, Mavron charged, his weapon raised. Swiftly pulling out her own slender sword, Torvia ducked out of the way and jabbed forward. Mavron easily intercepted and shoved her back before hammering his sword down. Without the slightest amount of restraint, he slammed his sword against hers again and again. He wasn't even trying to get past her guard. No matter how many times she dodged, he found a way to counteract her next move, forcing her to meet his blade. With every blow, he pushed her back until he knocked her right over. Torvia cursed as the others cheered, even the girl amongst them. Throwing herself out of the way, she narrowly avoided a slash to the stomach, but for a moment, Mavron was off balance. She struck, but Mavron had anticipated her move and swatted her away like a hapless locust. With one foot, he shoved her back into the ground. Struggling for breath, Torvia rolled away and leapt to her feet. This fight wasn't going well. Despite its slender size, her sword already weighed her down, and her limbs ached with the effort. Victory in his eyes, Mavron lunged, swiping down. Torvia leapt forward, bracing for the pain as she blocked his sword. Her arm shuddered with the impact, and her shoulder throbbed in protest, but her other hand was already sliding inside her tunic, to the blade hidden within. Malice twisted Mavron's lips, and he leaned into his sword, attempting to force her to the ground again until she slipped the dagger to his throat. Do you yield? She growled. Mavron stiffened, his eyes going wide. No, he muttered. You can't. Yield. My dagger is at your throat. Full of hate, Mavron's eyes moved to hers. After a moment, he relaxed his posture, bringing his sword down. You cheat, he spat. The dagger is not magic. Mavron switched his gaze to Charla. She forfeits the challenge, he said assertively. Unamused, Charla shook her head. A guard thinks with her head as much as she uses her weapons. His temper getting the better of him, Mavron threw down his sword and glared at Torvia. You're only here because Prince Adamir favors you. Charla strode forward, her voice rising. Torvia has just defeated you in spell and blade. She fully deserves to be here. Mavron sneered. If he wants to take a concubine to war, she doesn't need to be trained with a sword. Heat rushed to Torvia's cheeks. He thought Prince Adamir wanted her that way. What a ridiculous notion. Mavron knew nothing. A royal guard was far more important than a silly romance. If Mavron didn't know that, he had no business being a guard. A royal guard was the one person a royal could depend on, the one person who followed them everywhere, the one person who truly understood them. That's what she would be to Prince Adamir, not a simple-minded girl who shared his bed merely to be dismissed in the morning. Not that Prince Adamir had concubines. He was the most honorable soldier she knew and the most disciplined. While his younger siblings enjoyed the safety of the palace, Prince Adamir accompanied the king and the army to faraway worlds to secure peace for their allies. That's how she'd first met him. When her world had been invaded, he'd been part of the force sent to drive off the enemy. If it wasn't for him, she'd probably be dead. Many had died that day, her parents, his father, his most trusted friend. It forged a bond between them, and she'd been too young to follow him to his next battle. For nearly 6 years, she'd been training for the moment she could to repay the debt and fulfill her true purpose. It could be no accident that they'd met in the depths of the forest. Warriors died far too often, and despite his skill, Adamir was not invincible. He needed a guard he could trust, one he could confide in again, and one who could keep him safe. Adamir's uncle, the current king, was a warrior too, but not like Adamir. He'd not been there when everything she'd known was taken away. He'd only taken over the army when he was elected king. If Adamir had been older at the time, he'd probably have been elected instead. Watch what you say, Mavrin. Insulting royalty won't get you a position. Charla fixed him in a steely glare. And pick up your sword unless you withdraw your application. Muttering under his breath, Mavrin retrieved his weapon. I'm going to be a spy anyway, not a guard. He cast Torvia a dark glance before joining the others. Torvia snorted. He'd need more skill for that, though becoming a spy would suit his dishonorable nature much better. Her heart in her throat, Torvia closed the distance to Charla. Do I pass? Can I become a royal guard now? You certainly have the skill, but technically you are still too young for an official position. Torvia glared at her. What could she do? Charla sighed. It is up to Prince Adamir. I shall relay your performance and recommend a new assignment. There's nothing more I can teach you. A grin threatened to spill out on Torvia's lips. When will you see him? Charla's face darkened. He is returning this afternoon. The news will soon spread. The king is dead.